Okay, you are listening to Philadelphia Hall Monitor here on WPPM 106.5. And I am here with State Representative Jordan Harris, Chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And we're going to talk about a tour of the state he is going on to talk about something that's really, really important and necessary. And we talk about a lot here in Philadelphia, education funding. Thanks a lot, Rep. Harris, for giving us the time.
Thanks, Denise, for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you.
So I guess my first question for you is, why are you doing this tour? And how many counties are you intending to hit as a part of it?
So, education, we all know, is an extremely important part of our state's budget. But beyond that, I think what you do for the young people of your city, your county, or this Commonwealth, it really articulates your view on the future of your city, your county, or your Commonwealth. And that's a global perspective and not just a Pennsylvania-centric perspective. How a society treats their young people is indicative on the future that society will have, or the lack thereof. And the Commonwealth Court ruling, as you said, put into perspective and codified what many of us have believed for years, that the way we fund and the way we handle education in the Commonwealth is unconstitutional. So what this tour is going to do is take the legislature to the people and give us as legislators an opportunity to hear from our constituents across the Commonwealth, but also educational experts, both in Pennsylvania and across the nation, to talk to us about what the future of education should and could look like in Pennsylvania. Far too often, we talk in our own silos about what we think is best. And I think now is a pivotal moment for us to get beyond our own circle, and to really deep dive into what a reimagined education system in Pennsylvania could look like.
Now, you're not doing this alone, correct? You're not going out on this tour alone.
No, so it's the House Appropriations Committee, which I chair, and the House Education Committee, which my colleague, Representative Pete Schweier from the Lehigh Valley, he chairs. We're going out and we're breaking. And here's the thing, Denise, this is not political in the sense that it is a actual committee hearing, which means that Democrats and Republican members of the committee will be invited to take part in these conversations. And the minority chairman of the committee will also have an opportunity to add a speaker to the agenda. Listen, this is not a time to be adversarial when it comes to education, but it is a time to be visionary, inspirational, and aspirational when it comes to charting a new course of education in Pennsylvania. So we're going out collectively to really ask the tough questions about what education should look like in the Commonwealth.
So what are you hoping to learn from people? Or because when we talk about education, particularly when it's lawsuits, we focus on places like Philadelphia, which of course, we're in Philadelphia, it kind of makes sense. But when I was a reporter in Reading, there were people in Berks County, like the Hamburg School District, Conrad Weiser, the Reading School District itself, that were joining on to lawsuits that places like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh were filing because of education funding and its inequities. So what are you hoping to hear from constituents around the Commonwealth as you take this tour?
So I have an idea of some of the things we'll hear, but the truth is, what we're really trying to do is to bring in experts from all over, and I legitimately mean that, from all over, that can help us recalibrate what education should look like in Pennsylvania. And let me be clear, this is not just a funding conversation. The last thing we need, Denise, if we're being honest, is to pour tons of money into the system and then sit back 10 years later with tens of billions of more dollars spent and get the same outcomes, right? Now is the pivotal time, in my view, because it's time for us to make significant investments in education. It's been time for us to do it, but now that we do have the resources to do it, the question isn't just about how we fund, but what we fund. What works? Ask yourself this question. What works to close the educational gap between our poorest students and our wealthy and affluent students? Is it just more money in their schools? Or is it different? Or is there a differentiation in how we teach those students? Is it a different level of courses? Are there different options? Are there different delivery methods? All of those questions should and need to be answered. What do you do with teacher shortages? What have other states done with teacher shortages? What do you do to diversify the teacher workforce? How do you get more Black males into the classroom? How do you get more Black females in the classroom? How do you get more Hispanic brothers and sisters into the classroom? How do you work on, a career to technical education? These are all questions that need to be answered, but shouldn't just be answered from what we think, but what does the data show? What places are doing it better than Pennsylvania? What places have had success in it? And what are they doing that we're not doing? That's what this tour is about, to gather all of that information, right? So that when we move forward, we're moving forward armed with information that can help us reimagine what education looks like in the Commonwealth.
Now, you're saying that in an atmosphere where Governor Shapiro tried to get vouchers on, as part of the budget. And you also, and here in Philadelphia, there's always a conflict when it comes to the addition of more charter schools as opposed to traditional schools. Are you concerned that, talking about, radically, taking a more radical look at Pennsylvania's education system is going to, I guess, cause the teachers who are already here to decide, I don't want to fool with this?
Yeah, I don't think it's radical for us to think that our children deserve more and that we should actually bring in people to talk to us about what that more looks like and what better looks like. I don't think that's radical at all. I think it's actually responsible. But more than that, we will take a direct look at everything from charter schools to cyber charters to EITC, OSTC, scholarships. All of the above will be a part of the conversations that we're having. But here's the thing. We have a mandate from the court to do better. And that's not to do better by a few, but to do better by all. And, so for me, it's time that we review everything and all of the tools in our educational toolbox to see what works, what doesn't work, what we could do better, what we could tweak. I mean, when it comes to charter schools, we have a charter law that's more than 20 years old. You can't tell me that there aren't things in the charter law that need to be updated. I mean, if you talk to any of our charter advocates, those who are in favor of charter schools, those who are against, they will all agree on one thing. We need to update the charter law, right? So now is the time to have the significant, much needed conversation that we are being mandated or given a mandate from the Commonwealth Court to have about what education in Pennsylvania looks like. And we cannot be afraid. We cannot be afraid to have the necessary conversations. Again, it's not the time to be adversarial, but it is the time to be visionary. And far too often we allow what could happen or who might be upset or who might get offended to stop us from doing the work that's necessary. But here's what I know. I know that I graduated from a Philadelphia school more than 20 years ago. And I know some of the problems that we had when I was in school are still persisting problems. But what I also know is that it's foolish of us to think that money alone will solve the issues of our system. We have to take a hard look at it all. We have to take a hard examination of it all, and then collectively work together to see what's in the best interest of our children. If we don't, we the collective we will now be responsible for the future of this Commonwealth.
Okay, now before I send you to my co-host, Larry McGlynn, could you tell our listeners what EITC and the OITC, I think you were talking
Oh,
about? Because
yeah.
you know, while I might know that, my listeners might not.
So in Pennsylvania, we have a system of tax credit programs where basically a business gets a credit against their state tax, but then they can direct those resources to educational institutions. So for some parents, they've used those tax dollars to send their kids to private schools. They've used those tax credits, I should say, to private schools. And it's different than a voucher in the sense that it's not direct money going to a parent to decide where to send their kids, but it's tax dollars, tax credit dollars that a company was going to pay to the state for their taxes that they're now repurposing for schools and given to young people to go to different schools. That is the whole premise of the EITC. Then the OSTC is more directed, and there are more financial restraints because that money is more directed to income based for families, so that money could go directly to students who are in struggling school districts, who attend struggling schools, and whose family have a financial need. So that is already what exists in Pennsylvania. We spend well over, I think, actually close to $500 million in the tax credit programs that we have now. But here's the thing: we need to examine that. Is it working? Are the tax credit dollars going to the students that we want it to go to? Are the schools doing right by those students? All of these are unanswered questions, and all I'm saying is it's time for us to sit down, get the answers, so that we can chart the best course forward for all of our children.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to give you to my co-host, Larry McGlynn, and you are still listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
Thank you, Denise. And Representative Harris, thank you so much for joining us. Taking a broader view, you're going around the state, you're talking to people. How do external factors, and I'm really talking about the corrosive impact of money in politics, affect the educational decisions at the state level, and how do you cut through that?
Courage. Here's the thing, I think in my more than a decade in elected office, I've learned that if you've pissed off people on both sides of the issue, you probably hit the good sweet spot. This is one of those contentious issues that people feel very passionate about. But in my view, a lot of times we forget about why we're talking about this in the first place. And that's children. I have a particular lived experience as a student in a Philadelphia school and going through Philadelphia schools, my educational career here in Philadelphia. I have a particular lived experience that I think gives me a view on why and how we should approach these conversations that might be different than others. My vested interest is in the students because I continue to live in the neighborhood that the young people that we're talking about are educated in. When I walk out, and this is not hyperbole, when I walk out of my door on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning, I interact with the young people that we're talking about, because 2 blocks away from me, there's a middle school and a high school, or an elementary school and a high school, literally 2 blocks away from my house. So when I leave my front step, I'm running into the young people that we're talking about. So I'm not removed from any of this. So for me, it's more than the external forces and more about the young people who live on my block, who walk up my streets, and understanding what we could do better to make sure that they get a quality education right here in the city.
Now, it sounds like part of the tour is to figure out what other people are doing, what we should be doing in terms of educating the students, what the actual program should be. But we do know we have a huge infrastructure problem throughout.
Mhm.
And some of the surplus money sitting in Harrisburg right now be dedicated to that. And is that something that can be done sooner than later?
So a part of the conversation is going to be around facilities and what to do with facilities. Because here's the thing, even that could be a contentious conversation, right? There are those who want to pump money into fixing up facilities. And there are others who want to tear down the facilities and rebuild and do differently. I mean, you can have a lot of differing opinions on the issue of facilities. I think we all agree that we need to spend money on facilities. I mean, think about it this way, Larry. Philadelphia, we have a building down here in South Philly that was built in the 1800s. Like, I'm not exaggerating. The building was built in the 1800s, and it is still being used to this day as a school to educate children, right? There's a need for facilities. I mean, just I think it was last week, schools were closing early because of the heat. Our schools aren't air conditioned, right? So we know we need to, have a plan for what we do with facilities. And it is not just the urban issue. There are rural parts of Pennsylvania that have the same infrastructure problems, and some of them have even worse infrastructure problems in rural Pennsylvania. So we have a particular part of the tour where we're going to focus on facilities and what we could do. But again, what I want to press upon people is that nobody should be offended. Nobody should be scared. Nobody should be nervous. We're literally talking about bringing in folks who could tell us how to do it. And that's not to say that we don't have educators who, no, it's going to be a combination. But I think we have to admit that there are other places that are doing a better job at certain aspects of the educational space. What is the harm in bringing those folks in to find out, particularly places that are similar to here? What are you doing that's different? What have you changed that we haven't changed? What could we be doing differently? And then taking those suggestions and seeing how we can incorporate those things into what we're doing. When you are only looking at it from the perspective of what you do and what you've been doing, I think you miss out on an opportunity to really and significantly address issues and make the necessary changes.
Do you think there is an appetite in Harrisburg to actually make some sort of meaningful change?
Absolutely. I think you have lots of folks who understand the significance of the moment that we're in. Now, I'm not naive to the slow nature by which some things happen in Harrisburg, but I can tell you I've had success in many other areas, and the Capitol moving piece of legislation to the governor's desk that 10 years ago people told me we'd never be able to get done. So, a walk starts with a step. And I think it's time for us to take the steps in the right direction to see what we collectively can agree to after hearing information. I think the other thing is, we make a lot of decisions in Harrisburg without a lot of input from average everyday people, and without hearing their voices and hearing people's lived experiences. I think this is a great opportunity to give people that kind of access, so that we all can move collectively together.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Harris. I'm going to hand you back over to Denise Murray here on Philadelphia Hallmark.
Yes, so thank you so much, Representative Harris. Now, when is the tour coming to Philadelphia, and how can people here sign up to either come to the committee hearing or testify? How do we connect?
So the tour will be in Philadelphia. So let me say this: we're going all over the state, and I mean that. We're going to start off in in Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and Aliquippa. We're going to the northeast part of the state. We'll be in Philly. We'll be in the surrounding counties around Philadelphia. I think we're going to do some stuff in central Pennsylvania as well. We're literally going all over the state to really dive in deep on what education looks like in Pennsylvania and what we could do more of that we're doing well, and what we could change where we need to make improvements. We'll be in the city of Philadelphia. We can't not come to Philly. It's my hometown. But it also is the largest school district in the Commonwealth. It is a place that has a diversity of, kind of all of the things we're talking about in the educational toolbox. We'll be there. I believe the dates are October 24th and October 25th. We're spending 2 days in Philly. There are going to be all day occurrences from all of the different topics that we're going to be talking about. I think we're actually going to be touring some schools as well while we're here. We're so invested in this that we're also launching a new website that we're currently working on that we'll be launching at the beginning of October to give folks the opportunity, one, to sign up to testify when we get to that part, and to also share their views, their opinions, and their comments with the committee. So we're working on that website right now. So you can stay tuned to my social media sites, Rep Harris at Rep Harris on Twitter, Jordan A. Harris on Instagram, Rep Jordan Harris on Facebook. And we'll also, when we get that website up and running, we'll definitely share it with you so you can share it with your listeners. But we want folks to be engaged in this process. Like I said, this is not about walking alone, but this is really about us all walking together towards what quality education looks like for all of our children.
Okay, thanks a lot. This is Representative Jordan Harris. He is the chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And keep an eye here on Hall Monitor for when we get the information about the website. So that way, if listeners want to comment and let their feelings be known about education, what works, what doesn't, what you'd like to see, you can do that as part of this education tour taken on by the House Appropriations Committee and the House Education Committee. Thanks a lot for sharing the time with us.
And sugar belongs on grits.
No, it does not.